This is CNN Breaking News.
Breaking news. Members of the Senate Intelligence Committee visit the CIA and pore over raw intelligence data on Russia's interference in the election campaign. One senator tells CNN there's evidence of activity favoring one candidate. He won't discuss allegations of Trump campaign involvement, but says the lawmakers have more questions. Meantime, President Trump has called for an investigation of his unsubstantiated claim that he was wiretapped during the campaign by President Obama. Now he's got one. Leaders of a Senate subcommittee are asking the Justice Department to see any documents that may exist on such surveillance, and they're prepared to use their subpoena power. Leaders of other panels have said they'll also investigate the claim. Officials say a federal criminal probe has been opened into the publication of files by WikiLeaks, which claims the documents reveal methods the CIA uses to hack into smartphones, TVs, and other devices worldwide. And the White House says President Trump is in full sell mode on health care, but congressional conservatives aren't buying. The president will bring critics to the White House and hit the road to push the Obamacare replacement plan, but he'll need to study up on the art of the deal to win over opponents who've already declared the plan dead. I'll speak with the ranking Democrat on the Intelligence Committee, Congressman Adam Schiff, and our correspondents, analysts, and guests. They're standing by with full coverage of the day's top stories. Investigations are gathering steam right now into Russia's campaign meddling and the president's claim that he was wiretapped by his predecessor. Let's begin with our senior congressional reporter, Manu Raju. Manu, why are senators personally now going over to CIA headquarters?
Well, Wolf, tonight the House and Senate Intelligence Committee are pushing forward on their investigations to Russia's involvement during the elections and whether or not there were any campaign contacts with Trump officials and Russian officials at that time while Russia was trying to apparently help elect Donald Trump. That in the view of the intelligence community. Now, today, 4 senators went to CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, to pore over raw intelligence to look at exactly what Russia was doing. One of those was Senator Mark Warner, the top Democrat in the committee, who told me that it looks like that from that data that Russia was trying to help one candidate over another.
A lot of what we saw today was the evidence underlying how Russia manipulated the news, how it hacked into the DNC, and John Podesta leaked out in favor of one candidate against another candidate. But I think these efforts, beyond even the whole question about whether there were contacts between campaigns and the Russians, but this underlying assault on our democracy, I think Americans need to know about this.
Was there anything that suggests that the Trump campaign was involved in coordinating that release of information?
No, at this point, I'm not going to get into that part of the discussion. That's part of our investigation. It's always been about the misinformation. It's been about the hacking and selective release of emails.
Now, Wolf, 2 things that Mark Warner did point to was a change in the Republican Party platform to discuss Russia's treatment towards Ukraine in more favorable terms that Russia perhaps would like, and also Donald Trump's praise of Vladimir Putin when I asked him about any evidence of coordination. And those are issues that some members wanted to hear publicly. A public hearing now being called for by another member of the Intelligence Committee, that's Susan Collins of Maine, telling me earlier that she wants a public hearing to discuss these issues because this committee often operates in secret, Wolf.
Manu, at the same time, this other committee is demanding information over the president's claims that former President Obama wiretapped him. What do we know about that?
Yeah, that's right. 2 top senators, Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina and Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, a Democrat of Rhode Island who head a key subcommittee, are asking for information from the Justice Department and the FBI for any warrants or any applications to suggest that the Obama administration was at that time trying to spy on now President Trump, as the president is now suggesting. I talked to Lindsey Graham about this. This is what he said.
The president has asked Congress to look into whether or not his campaign was wiretapped by the Obama administration. I will take up that challenge, and we sent a letter to the Department of Justice and the FBI asking them for any information that they may have used to obtain a warrant. The whole purpose of this is to find out if a warrant was issued directed at the Trump campaign.
And if they don't provide this information?
Then I'll have done my job. Either they're lying to me or there is no information. and I don't believe they would lie to me about this. I expect them to come forward as to whether or not a warrant was obtained or sought.
And will you subpoena this information if they don't comply?
Yes.
Now, Wolf, Lindsey Graham actually had lunch with President Trump yesterday at the White House. I asked him, did you talk about this issue of wiretapping? He said, well, we actually talked largely about the issue of Russia, talking about Lindsey Graham's tough approach, hardline approach to Russia. And he believes after that conversation that President Trump may take a tougher tone towards Russia after they discuss this issue in depth, Wolf.
All right, Manu, thank you. Manu Raju up on Capitol Hill. Let me back to our breaking news. Joining us now, the senior Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, Congressman Adam Schiff of California. Congressman, thanks for joining us.
You bet.
All right, so you just heard the White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer say the president is not the target of a counterintelligence investigation. So how could he have been wiretapped?
Well, you know, of course, he couldn't have been, and I don't know what this means now is Sean Spicer now acknowledging that what the president said over the weekend was flatly false. And if so, don't you think the president owes an apology, not just to the former president, but to the entire American people? We will have Director Comey and others, I hope, coming in for our open hearing on March 20th. We ought to be able to put this to rest once and for all. But I don't think Sean Spicer can get away with just saying, well, okay, there's nothing to see here, let's move on. The President of the United States just leveled an unprecedented accusation of illegality at the former president, and the country deserves an answer about just why he did that.
Your Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, who's on the Judiciary Committee, said this is an issue for his committee as well, his subcommittee. So are you aware of any evidence at all that President Trump was the target of a criminal investigation?
I'm not aware of any evidence of any wiretapping. Whether there were any counterintelligence investigations going on, that's not something I can speak to at this point, but I'm not aware of anything targeting Mr. Trump. And for the president to suggest that he was the target of wiretapping, I think was grossly irresponsible. And if the press reports are accurate that Director Comey wanted the Justice Department to speak out on this, we are going to give the director the opportunity to do that quite directly. So we will be able to put this to rest. The president, as of I think 24 hours ago, asked our committee to investigate this. We are going to oblige him, and on March 20th, I think we'll have ample testimony that this claim was nonsensical, false, reckless, and scandalous in its breathtaking dishonesty, frankly.
Do you know if there was any wiretapping going on, not of President, then candidate Trump, but others at Trump Tower who were associated with Donald Trump?
Well, you know, it's quite a separate question from what the president alleged. That is, were there counterintelligence investigations going on, or even non-counterintelligence investigations, but our own review of what foreign spies are up to that incidentally captured or either corroborated information pointed to some collusion or captured conversations with U.S. persons. That is not something I can comment on, but that is not what the president alleged. And we shouldn't let his staff or surrogates, by means of subterfuge, try to confuse what it is the president accused his predecessor of doing. Whether there were incidental collections, that's a completely different matter, and not something that I could comment on during the pendency of the investigation.
You accepted the request to investigate the president's claims that President Obama illegally wiretapped him during the end of the campaign at Trump Tower in New York. Have you actually asked the White House to provide your committee with any and all evidence, whatever they might have, to back up the president's tweets?
You know, I don't know that we've made that formal request, but we have made a request of those who would have been in place at the time to come testify in open hearing. That's what the subject of this will be. We've asked Director Clapper, Director Brennan, Director Comey, Sally Yates, among others, to come in, and I think we will be able to resolve this very quickly. But I can only imagine the answer that we would get back from the administration if we went directly to them with that question.
Has the White House officially reached out to you about this, or is it your investigation just based on that statement released by the White House press secretary, Sean Spicer, that they want Congress, the House and the Senate Intelligence Committees to investigate?
They certainly haven't reached out to me. Whether they've reached out to the majority, I don't know. But frankly, I think there is a national interest in knowing whether our president just leveled a completely false allegation against his predecessor. And this is among the very easiest allegations to investigate, because it's simply a matter of putting those questions to people under oath who would have been in position to know. And we should have all those persons present on March 20th.
I spoke earlier today with one of your colleagues, Democratic House Intelligence Committee member Jackie Speer of California. She said even looking into all of this gives credibility to President Trump's claims. Does it?
Well, I don't think there's any credibility to these claims. And you've heard from Mitch McConnell and other Republican leadership, as well as rank and file. No one has seen any evidence of this, so I don't think it has much credibility. But they've asked us to look into that and be careful what you wish for. I'd like to have those that were present at the time be asked the question, was the President of the United States being honest? Was he being accurate when he accused his predecessor of wiretapping he and his associates? Because there needs to be some repercussion to this kind of reckless allegation. And in this case, I think the repercussion is that we will have high-ranking current and former officials telling the American people whether the president was truthful with them.
So when you say be careful what you wish for, as far as the president is concerned, I want you to elaborate on what you mean by that.
Well, the president asked us to investigate that, and now he's going to get what he wanted, because he's going to have the director of the FBI, the former director of the CIA, people from the Justice Department, all able to testify about whether he was telling the truth. I'm not sure that's exactly what he wanted when he asked us to investigate, because this won't be done in a closed private session. It won't be done away from the public spotlight. No, it'll be done while the country is watching. And I'm not sure that's exactly what they had in mind, but that's exactly what I hope they're going to get.
Well, does this open the door, Congressman, to subpoena Donald Trump's business records, his tax returns, for example? Is that something you're looking to do?
Well, again, I think that we ought to follow the facts where they lead. And if ultimately the facts led in a direction that the Russians or other used financial entanglement with the president or his organizations as a means of exerting influence over him, then it would be within the scope of our investigation. But we have a lot of spade work to do, I think, before we're ready to draw conclusions about that. And there's plenty of work that's already underway. But again, this is going to take us time to figure out just what are the credible allegations here, where does the evidence lead, what witnesses do we need to bring in, what documents do we need to obtain, and I think the way that this investigation can be credible and can add value is if we can find a way to do this in a nonpartisan fashion. The last thing we want to do is do an investigation where the majority issues one report, the minority issues another. This is going to be obviously enormously challenging given how politically fraught it is. But that would be in the national interest if there's a way we can find to go through this political thicket and do the job the American people really need us to do.
Congressman, I want you to stand by because there are more questions on the breaking news we're following right now. Stick around. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.